Hello everyone and welcome. This is the CyberSecStudy CISSP video bootcamp series. You're watching the free version of this domain. For access to the full version, go to the website at www.cybersecstudy.com. So hello everyone again, my name is Donald Parker. The reason you're watching this video is because you're interested in obtaining the CISSP certification, and in some cases you need it, right, for your job. The reason I'm here is because I developed a training program that can help you get past this doggone exam. So the program consists of a book of the course material, audio recordings of all of that content in the book. We have the video recordings now of all of the content of all 8 domains. I developed a Jeopardy style game that has questions that are based from the course material, and then a Kahoot competition style game where folks can compete and test their knowledge of the information in the course material. So this is a copy of the book. It's a little thicker than I really wanted it to be. But this is a hard copy version of the course material. If you purchase the audio or the video, then I'll also give you a soft copy of this course material. So for the book, it took me several years to write this book. I used several sources. The common body of knowledge, of course, the CBK is the most authoritative source. I also used the late great Sean Harris's all-in-one study guide. It's a phenomenal book. I used several practice question exam books that had explanations, very good explanations of key terms and concepts, and then the internet, of course. So I went through all these sources. I tried to group together the smallest grouping of terms that I thought would help you pass the exam. So I tried to, I categorized all these terms into either just terms, informational notes, concepts, and something I call muscle memory, which is all those algorithms and the OSI model and the ports and protocols and all that stuff that's just muscle memory that we have to memorize. I broke that out separately so that you could print out those muscle memory charts and focus on the muscle memory separate from understanding the terms and the concepts that I want you to know. So the focus of my book, of this course material, is to identify key terms and to expose you to those key terms in many different ways. I went through a couple of boot camps myself. I've taught boot camps with other people's course material, and what I've felt from those classes is that they were just throwing a bunch of information at you, just a ton of information. There's no way any of that stuff was sticking. So the intent of my program is to identify key terms so that when you're taking that exam and you're reading a test question, you see 3 or 4 key words, and those will point you to the correct answer. So we go through, as you go through this video series, you'll see these and hear these key terms. When we play rounds of Jeopardy, they're focused on these key terms. And when you test your knowledge with Kahoot, you're going to see these key terms again. So multiple times you're seeing these key terms and they're just embedded in your brain. Folks, so you could purchase the book, read the book. You could listen to the audio, which is just a verbatim, word for word illustration of the book. You can read or listen to the audio and follow along in the book at the same time. You could purchase the video series that you're looking at now, the full version of the video series for all 8 domains, which is the video recordings are a recording of a boot camp we just finished a couple of weeks ago. It turned out a lot better than I expected, and I think it can be really helpful. You could also watch or compete in rounds of Jeopardy, which, after you've gone through all the material and you're ready to see where you're at and test your knowledge, there are 15 rounds of Jeopardy to get through all 8 domains. But then Kahoot. Kahoot is something that we do on a weekly basis in the evenings. You could, if you go to the website and purchase the ability to compete in one of these competitions, there's one for each domain. The number of questions varies, but after you compete in this competition against other people who are preparing for the exam, it gives me a spreadsheet of every question and every answer, whether you answered wrong or right, so that I can sit down with you and know where you're weak and where you're strong. The people who compete well at Kahoot pass the exam the first time, every time. So the question that I often get, I think I get more often than any other question is, what's my success rate? How many of my students actually pass the exam? So I've been teaching CISSP boot camps with my own material for about 5 or 6 years. I've been teaching the boot camp for over 10 years, but all of my students pass the exam. If you go through my entire boot camp, I can tell you with the Kahoot rounds and the printout, the spreadsheet that comes out of that, I can tell you whether I think you're ready or not. If you're ready, you take the exam, those people pass every time. If you're not ready, I'll tell you, and I'll tell you what I think you need to work on. Now, I've had some folks who took the exam anyway, even after I told them that I think we need more time. They didn't pass the first time. I worked with them some more afterwards, and they passed the second time. So really, it's up to you. If you can get through all of this content, it's a marathon of material to get through. If you really want it, if you really need it, then if you can get through all of this content, I am very confident that you can get through the first time. But I would need to see you compete on Kahoot rounds in order to know for sure whether I think you're ready. All right, guys, that's it. Welcome to the program. Welcome to this journey to cybersecurity. It is the fastest growing industry in the world. It's the most exciting, in my opinion. I love what I do. I love working with this stuff. I love talking about it. I love sharing information. So again, if you're interested in the full version, go to www.cybersecstudy.com and take care. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the CyberSecStudy CISSP Bootcamp. This is a 2-week program. I'm going to start out by just telling you a little bit about my background. I'll tell you about the CyberSecStudy program, and then we'll just dive right in. Again, it's a 2-week program. Tonight is day 1. We'll do 2 nights a week, and then we'll meet on the weekend on Saturday and Sunday. So again, my name is Donald Parker. I obtained a bachelor's degree in math with a minor in computer science way back in 1993. After college, after graduation, I joined the Army. I enlisted in the Army, primarily because they had a program back then that, in lieu of the GI Bill, since I already had my bachelor's, they would pay off all my student loans. I had a ton of student loans, so it was a phenomenal opportunity. Made my way through college, served 3 years in the Army, and never had to make one student loan payment. So my parents and I were very, very happy about that. After the Army, I've been consulting to federal agencies my entire career, 24 plus years to be exact. I started training about 12 years ago. Started out with the CISSP, just doing a domain or two here or there. I got offered to do my first boot camp before I thought I was ready. But they offered so much money that I couldn't pass it up. So
I got through it. I survived. All the students who took the exam from that class passed. I'm extremely happy about that. I have a couple of patents for devices. One being what I call a secure network cable, designed to help protect consumer-based broadband connected computers from botnets. Um, and I'll show you guys. I have a prototype of that device. I'll show it to you a little bit later. I also developed a cryptographic cipher, a mechanical cryptographic cipher, not necessarily for commercial use, but really just to be able to use as a teaching aid, a tool that helps explain the key terms with cryptography, pun intended, of course. So I've taught over 20 CISSP boot camps, both domestic and abroad, and it's been a lot of fun. I enjoy what I do. I love what I do. I love teaching. I love sharing information with folks. I love talking about this field. Um, I enjoy consulting. Consulting is a lot more difficult because you have to deal with people. You have to deal with negotiations with folks, and a lot of times politics gets in the way of security. With training, you've got eager minds that just want to learn, that just want to share, and I really, really appreciate that environment. But I do benefit from both. Consulting allows me to implement these, this knowledge and these skills, or the awareness of these terms and concepts. The ability to apply this knowledge is extremely important. So a little bit about the program. I wrote a book of the course material, and I used several sources. I have, of course, the CBK, the Common Body of Knowledge from ISC Squared, is the most authoritative source. It's a great resource. I don't think it is a very good read. It doesn't follow a very good logical flow, in my opinion. But as a resource, in terms of how they define terms and how they define concepts, it's phenomenal. I love the way they explain things. Another resource I used was, of course, the late, great Sean Harris's all-in-one exam guide. A lot of folks use this. This is a much better read. It has stories. It even has some pretty wry jokes in there. But for folks that are new to the field, I think it offers a more a gentle introduction to the field. So those are my main two sources. I use a couple of other practice exam books that had some really good information in them, and of course the internet. So I went through all of those sources. I tried to identify the smallest grouping of terms that I thought were necessary to help you prepare for and pass the CISSP exam. So I went through the CBK first, listed all the terms that I thought were important, wrote definitions for all those terms. I went through Sean Harris's book and cross-referenced the terms that I found in that with the ones I found in the CBK and all the other sources. I found all the terms that I thought were most important. I tried to organize them in a logical flow, but then I also categorized them in a way that I thought would be helpful. and we'll see that once we get into the slide deck. So I also, in writing my definitions for these terms, I always try to write and to speak as efficiently and as possible, with as few words as possible, enough to just get the point across and no fluff, nothing more. So that was my objective, and took me a pretty good while, but I was able to get through it. So I have a book of the course material, and this is it here in paperback form. It's a pretty thick book. I tried to keep it as small as possible, but I also wanted to make sure I didn't leave out anything important, so that it could be an all-encompassing book that could help you prepare for and pass the exam. So I wrote that course material, and then I recorded all of it into an audio format, 33 episodes of about 15, 20 to 30 minutes per episode, to get you through all 8 domains of the CISSP. I uploaded all of the audio, all 33 episodes, to YouTube. To iTunes, and the response has been pretty good. I think I've got well over 1.5 million downloads to date. I have recorded and re-recorded this material probably 10 to 15 times. Just trying to get better, trying to perfect it, trying to be more helpful, and produce a better quality product. So there's the book, there's the audio of the book. You could read the book if you're a person who learns better by reading. You could listen to the book while you commute to and from work by listening to the audio, or you could do them both at the same time. You could listen to the audio and follow along in the book while you listen. I've also created 2 game formats that help reinforce the information, and it really makes the boot camps and the classes that I teach more interactive, more interesting, and a whole lot more fun. So there are 15 rounds of Jeopardy. A Jeopardy board game that I put together looks just like what you see on the TV show, and it has custom developed questions from this course material. To get through all 8 domains, there are 15 rounds of Jeopardy. I used to teach or moderate Jeopardy competitions at the Microsoft store at Pentagon City Mall, and I would record those sessions and post them up on YouTube. So you could go to YouTube and search for CyberSecStudy. Okay. Excuse me. All right, so then there are also 8 rounds of Kahoot, Kahoot. If you're familiar with the website Kahoot, it's a phenomenal competitive question quiz type format, and you can log in on your smartphone, on a laptop. There's a iPhone and Android app that you could use, and I've got 8 rounds, 1 round for each domain, and throughout the boot camp we play Jeopardy, we compete in rounds of Kahoot, and when people are to get through this material, it's a marathon. There's no other way to put it. If you decide to study for the CISSP, you are excuse me, you're deciding to prepare for a mental marathon. There's really no other way to put it. The same way you would prepare for a physical marathon, you got to go out and do a little bit every day. It doesn't have to be a lot, but you've got to do a little bit of something every day. So try if you could do something fun while running. That's the intent of the Jeopardy and Kahoot. But Kahoot, it also, as we go through the questions and get through the quiz, it's recording all of that information, and at the end of it, it spits out a printout of every person that competed, every question for throughout the quiz, and what answer you chose, whether it was right or wrong, and it really allows me to identify the subject areas where majority of people are struggling. So I know we need to go back and focus on a particular area. But then as an individual, I can sit down with you and help you identify where you're strong and where you're weak, and help get you over the top. So that essentially is the CyberSecStudy course material. I developed a 2-week boot camp that essentially gets you through all of that content to help guide you through all of it. You could self-study if you wanted to, or you could sign up for a boot camp. My 2-week online / on-site boot camps are only $500. You can go to some of the other training facilities, and they'll charge you $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and they'll have an instructor who is their first or second time teaching the class, and they'll just read the book to you, if that's what you want. But so we go for 2 nights a week, Tuesday and Thursday nights, 2 hours from 6 to 8 Eastern Standard Time. Then we meet on Saturday and Sunday from 10 to 4 Eastern Standard Time for 6 hours on Saturday and Sunday. We do that for 2 weeks. We get through all the content. And by the end of it, I can tell you whether I think you're ready or not for the exam. If I think you're ready, I'll give you my guarantee. You take the exam, you don't pass, I give you your $500 back. But you have to earn that guarantee. I'm not. You can't just sit through the class and get that guarantee. I have to be, teaching as many boot camps as I have. I can pretty much tell who's ready and who's not. But you have to earn that guarantee. And if you don't, if you sit through the 2-week boot camp and I don't feel like you're ready, or you don't feel as confident as you'd like to be, then I'll let you sit for the next boot camp for free. And you can attend as many boot camps as you want. You become a member of the family after you sign up for that first boot camp, and you can continue going on until you have the confidence, and you and I believe that you're ready. So tonight we're going to go at a pretty rapid pace. We're going to get through domain 1. It's a pretty long domain, so our whole first night is dedicated to this one domain. But yeah, we'll go at a pretty rapid pace. We'll play a round of Kahoot for domain 1 at the end of the slide deck presentation, and then when we get together on this Saturday and Sunday, we will have hopefully completed domains 1 through 4. If not, then we'll finish whatever domains we need to finish on Saturday, and then we'll spend Sunday just talking, taking our time, no rush, no hurry. We'll tell stories. We'll have drinks if I have had some boot camps where we've done that, but it's more of a relaxed setting where we can sit down and we're not rushing, and we can talk a lot more about our experiences. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the course material. We have a table of contents that tells you where each domain begins, which page they begin. This slide here just walks you through the difference between the old 10 domain format and the new 8 domain format. So we've got the old 10 domain format. They really just changed the names of the domains and then moved some of the material from the old 10 domains into the new 8 domains. They didn't get rid of hardly any information, and they only added one brand new domain. So domain 1, the new domain 1 is now called security and risk management. It includes information from domain 2, domain 8, and domain 7 from the old 10 domain format, and so forth. When we get down here to the new domain 4, communications and network security is what it's called now. It used to be the telecommunications and network security, the old domain 5, but all of that content is pretty much the same. Then you get down to the new domain 5, identity and access management, is the old domain 2, access control, almost the exact same content. The only brand new domain for the new 8 domain format is this domain number 6, security assessment and testing, which really it's a very tiny domain, but it has information that I think could be rolled up into domain 8, security and the system development lifecycle. But for whatever reason, they decided to make it its own domain. All right, so domain 1, security and risk management. I mentioned earlier that I identified all the terms that I thought were important, but then I grouped them into a logical format or categorized them. So we have terms that could be a word or a group of words designating something. We have concepts, which are overarching themes that may encompass many terms. And then informational notes, which is helpful information. May or may not be on the exam, but just something that I thought was a little extra that could help add context. And then we have formulas. Some formulas that we have to learn are conceptual, and some are actually mathematical computations that have to be performed. But for the most part on the exam, you just need to recognize what words or what terms are in each of these formulas and what order they're in. And then we have what I call muscle memory. You hear folks talk about the exam being a mile long and an inch deep. The mile long part is easy. It's a ton of information to get through all 8 domains. Most of the time, folks get through, by the time you get to domain 6 and 7, you've forgotten the information from domain 1 and 2. So I have several methods that I use to help overcome that. Muscle memory is one of them. So anything that requires memorization, I put that into a muscle memory chart, and you can print those out and come up with mnemonics, but try to memorize those later. As we're going through the course material, I don't want you to worry about memorization and muscle memory. I just want you to be able to follow along and understand the concepts and build your mental picture, which we're going to talk about on this slide. So as I'm presenting this information to you, I am sharing with you my mental picture in the hopes that you will be developing your own mental picture. Now, I get into classroom situations. It never fails. There's always one person in the class that, wants to challenge the instructor. But, I always tell folks, if your mental picture disagrees with my mental picture, if you strongly disagree with my mental picture, then by all means, go with yours. Your perspective on the information can serve you better than my perspective. Okay, so keep that idea in mind as we go through this content. You're trying to build on your mental picture. And so these are some of the first terms that we're going to talk about. So I also grouped, along with grouping all the terms or categorizing them, I numbered them, really for my own edification. But it really helped me when we made the switch from the 10 domain format to the 8 domain format. It was really easy for me to make the switch because I knew exactly what terms were moved and what concepts were moved from one domain to another. So domain one, keywords here. My objective in presenting this material to you, the CISSP exam, it's a vocabulary exam. There's no way of getting around it. You know, it's also a management exam, but you don't have to be a manager to pass this exam. You just have to put on your management cap and think like managers think, but you don't have to have been one in order to pass it. You do have to have a broad vocabulary. So there are keywords that I'm focusing on in my material so that when you read an exam question, you can identify the keywords that will point you to the correct answer. So laws, there are IT security laws such as FISMA, we have SOX, GLBA. These are obligatory rules that apply to citizens of federal governments, of states, local municipalities. But the thing I want you to know is that, first of all, laws are obligatory. They must be complied with. But then secondly, who do they apply to? Okay. With policies, they are also obligatory, but they apply to employees of corporations. Regulations, the key word I want you to know about this term is that it's industry specific. Regulations are applied to corporations within specific industries. The medical industry, the payment card industry, the financial industry. So keep that in. The key word with regulations is industry specific. But it does get really confusing because HIPAA is a law that applies to a specific industry. So a lot of confusion around is HIPAA a law or a regulation? It is a law, but whenever you have the debate between which one should I consider or which one should I comply with, a regulation, a law, or a standard, which is a term we'll see here in a minute, I always tell folks, comply with the one that has the greatest penalty for non-compliance. And for the most part, those are laws. Standards are obligatory, just like laws and policies and regulations, but they're usually applied nationally or internationally. The national standards body here in the United States is NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. An international standards body is the ISO, the International Organization for Standards. And, they come up with standards for such things as power outlets, building codes, and things like that. But then also they have a series that focuses on information technology, firewalls, antivirus, any type of routers, switches, server configuration, secure configurations, audit log management concepts, risk management methodologies. Just about anything related to information technology, you can find either a standard or a guideline. Standards are obligatory. Guidelines, term number 5, are not obligatory. Guidelines are just helpful recommendations. So highlight that, underline that. The key word with regulations is that they're industry specific. Policies are applied to employees of corporations. They're obligatory. Laws are applied to citizens of countries, of states, of local municipalities. They are also obligatory and carry heavy punishment, jail time, or monetary fine. Standards are national or international. They're obligatory. Guidelines are not obligatory. They're only helpful recommendations. Someone can produce a guideline, and you can, maybe a guideline that's a risk assessment or risk management methodology that you could follow to the letter or not. You could alter it or not comply with it at all. Procedures are step-by-step instructions that tell you exactly what to do. Baseline is a benchmark an initial state from which things are measured or compared. And here's our first muscle memory chart. Muscle memory chart number 1-A lists all these key terms that we just talked about, whether they're obligatory, who must comply with them, and where are they applied. This is just another graphical illustration of those terms and how I see them. I see that laws and policies at the same level. This is more of my mental picture. Regulations and standards, guidelines, helpful recommendations, procedures, and baselines, step-by-step instructions, a state from which to begin with baselines. Governance. Governance ensures that the business focuses on core activities, classifies who in the organization has the authority to make decisions, determines accountability for actions and responsibility for outcomes, and addresses expected performance and how it will be evaluated. So, in a nutshell, for me, governance means that the head of the organization, and I always think of Warren Buffett for some reason when I see the word governance, as the head of the corporation, it's his responsibility to understand all of the business processes that have to be performed in order for that organization to achieve or accomplish its mission. He must also understand what risk there is inherent in operating those business processes. So monitoring performance and assessing risk is the primary responsibility of the senior leader, and that's all considered governance. If you're governing, you are monitoring performance and assessing risk. Compliance, I think a lot of folks mix up governance and compliance, completely different terms. Compliance generally refers to actions that ensure behavior complies with established rules, as well as provisions or tools to verify that compliance. So if there is a law, regulation, or standard that your corporation must comply with, you implement security controls and mechanisms to demonstrate compliance. Risk management is one of my favorite topics. That word management implies that you are starting something, managing it over time, and then removing it or disposing of it. I always get asked the question of folks in my classes, is there a difference between risk management and risk assessment? And I never really get a very good answer. If I do get one, they'll say yes, or no, there is no difference, that they're the same, but no, very different. Risk management is the overarching term. There are 4 steps to risk management. The second step of risk management is a risk assessment. So a risk assessment is a component of risk management, and we'll walk through each of these steps. Probably the most important definition or term throughout the information security, cybersecurity field is this term here, risk. I tried to identify a grouping of words that would allow you to express or discuss risk at a core level, to the point where you can't talk about risk without talking about these 4 components. So risk equals the likelihood versus the impact of a threat exposing a vulnerability. And those are the 4 components: likelihood, impact, threat, and vulnerability. Very, very important terms. And we'll talk about these, but if you understand these terms and how they relate to each other, then you'll be able to get a lot of questions right with respect to risk and risk management. All right, thank you guys. That is it. This was domain number 1, security and risk management. And now we'll move on to domain number 2, which is asset security.